For decades, the world believed it already knew everything about John Denver. His music, his fame, his charm, and the public image of a man who seemed almost impossibly perfect. But today, after years of absolute silence, Annie Denver has finally decided to break her silence and reveal the truth that no one expected. A truth that not only changes everything we thought we knew about their marriage, but exposes the most hidden, painful, and controversial chapters of the legendary singer's life. What Annie reveals is not the polished version Hollywood loved to promote, but the raw, human, and deeply emotional reality of a relationship marked by love, heartbreak, distance, and secrets that were carefully protected for decades. She speaks about the emotional storms inside their home, the pressures of fame that slowly consumed their marriage, the moment she tried to save him from himself, and the revelations about John's struggles that the world was never allowed to hear. These are details that challenge the myth, shake the legend, and reveal a man torn between the desire for peace and the chaos fame brought into his life. And believe me, the final truth Annie shares is something so unexpected that will completely change the way you see John Denver forever. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button, because your engagement helps YouTube recommend this kind of deep, emotional content to more people who love discovering hidden and untold stories behind iconic figures. And if you want to support our work even further, you can contribute to the Super Thanks button. It helps us bring more exclusive and carefully researched content to the channel. But if you can't, simply leave a comment telling us which part of Annie's revelation shocked you the most, or which story about John Denver you would like to see next. Stay with me until the end, because the last revelation Annie shares is so powerful, so emotionally heavy, that it will leave you speechless and change everything you thought you knew about this unforgettable chapter in music history. Annie Martel, later known worldwide as Annie Denver, was born in the quiet, rural landscapes of Minnesota into a modest and tight-knit family. Her early life was marked by simplicity, long winters that shaped her resilience, and a strong sense of community. Her parents instilled values that would guide her through life: honesty, kindness, responsibility, and a belief that character mattered far more than wealth or fame. These principles became the foundation of her inner strength, the very strength that would sustain her through the intense, often turbulent experiences of being married to John Denver, one of the most iconic musicians of his time. From a young age, Annie showed a gentle, introspective nature paired with deep empathy. She had a remarkable ability to understand others, offering comfort with mere presence. Her childhood was grounded in everyday routines: helping at home, participating in community events, taking school seriously, and quietly developing a love for music and the arts. Fame was never part of her dreams. Instead, she valued small joys such as laughter around the kitchen table, strolls through the neighborhood, and the calm rhythms of rural life. As Annie matured into adolescence, her quiet strength and reliability became more evident. She wasn't dramatic or impulsive. She was steady and emotionally resilient. While peers sought excitement or recognition, Annie preferred harmony and stability, observing the world rather than becoming swept up in it. This rare gentleness made her strong, giving her the emotional foundation needed for the challenges of adulthood. She dreamed a love grounded in loyalty, building a family and a home full of warmth. She had no idea that destiny would soon place her in a relationship that would capture the public's imagination, generate global rumors, and push her emotional strength to its limits. After completing school, Annie lived a modest, ordinary life, taking on simple jobs and continuing to nurture her grounded personality. There was nothing in her early life to suggest she would become a figure intertwined with fame. Yet it was precisely her authenticity, emotional clarity, and calm presence that attracted John Denver. He was ambitious, passionate, and driven, while Annie provided balance, serenity, and understanding. Their connection seemed almost inevitable, a fusion of contrasting personalities that complemented each other perfectly. Their first meeting was unremarkable to outsiders, but carried a quiet intensity. Annie was visiting friends in Minnesota when she met John, a young musician still seeking his path. He was drawn to her calm presence and empathy, qualities absent in his chaotic world. Annie, in turn, recognized the depth and vulnerability in him beyond the charm and talent he displayed publicly. Their conversations quickly evolved into deep connection, covering family, dreams, values, and fears. Letters, long discussions, and shared confidences cemented a bond built on emotional compatibility. Annie provided grounding, while John offered purpose and excitement. As the relationship grew, Annie became more involved in John's early musical career, attending shows and rehearsals. She was not dazzled by the industry, but tuned into the pressures, vulnerabilities, and emotions behind it all. Her support became indispensable to John, who needed her emotional anchor more than ever. Yet, as his fame grew, so did the challenges of their relationship. John's demanding schedule, the pressures of performance, and Annie's discomfort with public attention began testing their bond. Annie adapted, balancing support for John with her own need for privacy and stability, embodying the silent strength that would define their early years together. Their love deepened, inspiring some of John Denver's most iconic work, including the timeless Annie song. The song captured the intensity and beauty of their connection, making Annie both muse and silent co-creator of an enduring symbol of love. Yet behind the lyricism and public admiration, the pressures of fame and the complexities of their personalities began to introduce cracks in the relationship. Annie's preference for tranquility and John's pursuit of intensity created tension, even as mutual respect and admiration remained strong. As Annie and John Denver's relationship progressed into marriage, the world perceived a fairy tale unfolding. The poetic musician and the serene, grounded woman who inspired one of his most beloved songs. To the public, it seemed effortless and romantic. Yet behind closed doors, the realities of fame and personality differences began to weigh heavily. Their union was not just about love, but also about navigating the intense demands of the entertainment industry, where every action was observed and analyzed. Annie, who had grown up valuing privacy, honesty, and emotional balance, suddenly found herself under the relentless gaze of the media. The simplicity of her earlier life contrasted sharply with the whirlwind of tours, interviews, and public appearances that defined John's fast-growing career. In the early months of marriage, they tried to create a sense of normalcy. John's rising stardom brought excitement, but also exhaustion, irregular schedules, and constant travel. Annie provided stability and calm when he returned home, becoming his anchor amid chaos. Her presence gave John emotional grounding, allowing him to navigate fame while feeling understood and supported. Yet, the pressures of being a musician's spouse, especially one who shunned attention, began to emerge. Annie faced a life far removed from the quiet, modest routine she had always known. Friends noticed subtle changes. Her quiet withdrawals, her occasional fatigue, and the emotional weight she carried in keeping the household and family life steady despite the unpredictable demands of fame. John's personality, amplified by success, introduced another layer of complexity. He was ambitious, sensitive, and occasionally volatile, demanding perfection in his music, life, and surroundings. Annie often absorbed the emotional turbulence he couldn't fully express elsewhere. While she loved him deeply, she also longed for the peace and stability that had defined her upbringing. Their love remained genuine, but the balancing act of supporting John's career while preserving her own emotional well-being became increasingly delicate. The marriage also highlighted fundamental differences in how they perceived life. Annie craved calm, routine, and private connection, while John thrived on intensity, constant movement, and public engagement. Small disagreements, often centered around schedules, public obligations, or personal boundaries, gradually built into heavier emotional challenges. These tensions were rarely explosive but carried an underlying current of strain. Both partners tried to adapt, but the weight of expectation, self-imposed, media-driven, and societal, often tipped the scales in subtle, draining ways. Motherhood added another layer of responsibility and joy. Annie embraced her role as a caregiver, nurturing not only their children, but also the emotional atmosphere of the household. Yet, John's relentless touring and professional demands sometimes left her managing both the family and the home alone. This dual responsibility reinforced her resilience, but also increased emotional strain. Despite the challenges, she remained a supportive, loving partner, balancing patience with quiet strength. One of the most poignant aspects of this period was how Annie's influence quietly shaped John's artistry. Songs written during their marriage reflected not just love, but also the emotional nuances of their relationship. Annie's presence, her grounding energy, and her perspective informed his work in ways the public rarely recognized. She became both muse and confidant, inspiring music that resonated with millions, even as her own story remained largely untold. Yet, the cracks became increasingly noticeable as fame grew. The world celebrated their romance through songs, appearances, and interviews, but the private reality was often starkly different. Annie faced a constant challenge of preserving her identity and emotional well-being while being perceived as the wife of John Denver, a role that required both invisibility and perfection. The tension between her private desires and public expectations created a pressure cooker that tested every facet of her resilience. Through it all, Annie's core values, empathy, honesty, and inner strength, allowed her to endure. She learned to navigate the public's attention without losing herself entirely, finding small spaces of autonomy and quiet reflection amid a life dominated by fame. These years, though challenging, reinforced the depth of her character and prepared her for the eventual changes that would define the next chapter of her life. As the pressures of fame, contrasting personalities, and emotional strain accumulated, Annie and John Denver faced a difficult and inevitable truth. Their marriage, despite deep love, could no longer sustain the intensity of their lives together. The separation was not dramatic or publicized with sensational headlines, but carried a heavy emotional weight, deeply personal and profoundly human. Annie's pain was quiet yet immense, as she had invested years of devotion, patience, and emotional energy into a relationship that had once felt destined. While the public continued to celebrate their love through songs and memories, Annie wrestled with the solitude and loss that accompanied the end of her marriage. The divorce forced her to confront emotions she had carefully managed for decades. Feelings of sadness, regret, and grief intertwined with relief and newfound clarity. Annie often reflected on the disparity between the public's perception and her lived reality. While many assumed her life was glamorous and carefree, she experienced moments of invisibility, loneliness, and emotional exhaustion. Her private pain was compounded by the fact that she remained a steadfast support for John, managing his emotional needs in the household, while rarely receiving the same level of care or understanding in return. These realizations were both painful and enlightening, shaping the next phase of her journey toward independence and self-awareness. Despite the heartache, Annie's strength and resilience emerged prominently during this period. She began establishing boundaries, learning to prioritize her own emotional well-being, and understanding that her identity could not remain tethered solely to her relationship with John. The separation became a pivotal moment of self-reflection, allowing her to evaluate her past decisions, recognize patterns, and confront lingering fears. Through this process, she discovered that healing required both acceptance of the past and courage to envision a life beyond the shadow of a famous partner. During these years, Annie gradually shared small fragments of her experience in selective interviews and private conversations. These early revelations were cautiously expressed, often understated, yet they offered rare insight into the private struggles of someone living alongside immense fame. She spoke about the emotional challenges of constantly supporting a partner in the public eye, the feeling of invisibility despite her integral role in the family, and the complexities of balancing love with self-preservation. These admissions, though subtle, were powerful in exposing the human cost of a relationship enmeshed in celebrity culture. Friends and close confidants described Annie during this period as introspective and quietly determined. She sought solitude not out of bitterness, but to reclaim her sense of self. She surrounded herself selectively with individuals who respected her privacy, valued authenticity over spectacle, and supported her gradual reintegration into a life that centered on her own needs. Each step she took was deliberate, from simple routines to meaningful personal projects, emphasizing emotional grounding over external validation. Annie also began to reframe her understanding of love and partnership. The experience of separation taught her that devotion alone is not enough to sustain a relationship under extraordinary circumstances. Emotional compatibility, mutual support, and personal growth became essential lenses through which she evaluated her past and future relationships. Her reflections were not marked by regret alone. They were infused with lessons of resilience, patience, and necessity of setting boundaries for personal well-being. Through this reflective phase, Annie gradually recognized the transformative potential of her own narrative. The private pain she endured, the challenges of fame, and the complexities of her marriage provided a foundation for wisdom that she could share publicly when ready. Her early revelations, cautious yet impactful, became the first step toward reclaiming her story, reframing it not as a tale of loss, but as one of growth, strength, and authenticity. Ultimately, this chapter of separation and private struggle illuminated Annie's capacity for endurance and personal evolution. While the world fixated on John Denver's music and public persona, Annie navigated a parallel journey of self-discovery and emotional reclamation. She learned that healing is not linear, that quiet resilience often surpasses visible triumphs, and that one can emerge from personal heartbreak with clarity, purpose, and renewed self-respect. This period set the stage for the next chapter, Annie's life after John, where she rebuilt her identity, embraced independence, and cultivated maturity and perspective that would define her today. After the separation, Annie Denver stepped into a world that felt both unfamiliar and liberating. For the first time in decades, she had the space to explore who she truly was outside the shadow of a famous partner. The transition was neither easy nor instantaneous. It was a deliberate process of reconstruction, requiring patience, self-reflection, and emotional courage. Annie had spent years prioritizing John, their children, and the public perception of her life. Now, she had to rediscover herself, redefining her values, goals, and emotional priorities on her own terms. This period of self-reclamation became the foundation for the woman she is today. Annie began by reevaluating her daily routines, habits, and relationships. Simple tasks, once overshadowed by the demands of her marriage and motherhood, became opportunities for intentional living. She embraced the freedom to make decisions for herself, from career moves to personal interests, and gradually rebuilt a sense of autonomy that had been subdued for years. She also began reconnecting with friends and family who respected her boundaries and encouraged her personal growth, creating a support network that emphasized authenticity over obligation. During this time, Annie explored new avenues for personal fulfillment. She engaged in creative projects, philanthropic efforts, and intellectual pursuits that nurture her mind and spirit. The activities were not designed for public recognition or acclaim. They were meaningful for her own emotional and psychological well-being. Friends noted that this phase of Annie's life revealed a quiet, radiant confidence, a woman who had endured heartache, yet emerged wiser, more self-aware, and emotionally grounded. Annie's perspective on love and relationships also evolved profoundly. She approached connections with greater clarity, understanding the importance of emotional reciprocity and healthy boundaries. The pain of the past informed her choices, teaching her that sustaining a partnership requires not only affection and loyalty, but also mutual support, respect, and the ability to preserve one's individuality. She became more selective about her interactions, seeking depth over superficiality and emotional honesty over pretense. Another significant aspect of this phase was Annie's growing maturity in handling public attention. Though she had lived much of her life under scrutiny, she learned to navigate media curiosity with composure and discernment. She no longer felt compelled to explain herself or defend her choices incessantly. Instead, she shared insights selectively, ensuring that her narrative was authentic and intentional. This newfound control over her story empowered her, transforming past vulnerability into strength and self-possession. Annie also cultivated mindfulness and emotional resilience during these years. She acknowledged the trauma and challenges of her past without letting them define her. By practicing self-awareness and embracing reflective habits, she gained a deeper understanding of her emotional landscape and developed strategies to maintain balance and well-being. These practices allowed her to confront difficult memories, process lingering pain, and move forward without resentment or regret. Motherhood remained a central anchor in her life. Annie continued to prioritize her children's well-being while simultaneously carving space for her own personal growth. She balanced nurturing with autonomy, ensuring that her identity was not solely defined by her role as a mother. This equilibrium became a testament to her ability to integrate love, responsibility, and self-respect into a coherent and fulfilling life. By the end of this reconstruction phase, Annie had transformed her life into a space of calm, clarity, and purpose. She had rebuilt not only her routines and relationships, but also her internal sense of self. The lessons learned through separation, reflection, and deliberate growth had forged a woman capable of navigating life with wisdom, compassion, and emotional intelligence. She had emerged from the shadows of fame and past heartbreak as someone grounded, self-aware, and authentically empowered. This period also laid the groundwork for the revelations that would follow. Annie's experiences after John provided her with perspective, emotional maturity, and the courage to finally speak her truth. She became prepared not only to reclaim her narrative, but also to offer insights into the complexities of love, fame, and personal resilience. The journey of reconstruction and self-discovery marked a turning point, showing that even after profound loss, life can be rebuilt with intention, balance, and grace. In essence, Annie Denver's post-John life illustrates the power of reinvention, the value of emotional autonomy, and the importance of cultivating self-respect and maturity. It is a testament to the idea that healing, growth, and fulfillment are attainable even after years of sacrifice, public scrutiny, and personal challenges. Her journey from heartbreak to self-possession offers inspiration for anyone seeking to reclaim their life and identity after enduring significant emotional trials. After decades of silence, Annie Denver finally decided it was time to tell her story in full, to reclaim her narrative and to reveal the truths that have been kept private for so long. These revelations were not designed for sensationalism or to create scandal. Instead, they were about honesty, closure, and the opportunity to share a perspective with the world. Annie's willingness to speak openly shocked many who had assumed they already knew the story. For years, fans and media alike had speculated about her life with John Denver, the difficulties of fame, and the reasons behind their separation. Annie's account provided clarity, context, and deeply personal insights that no one else could authentically give. Her statements emphasized the challenges of living under constant public scrutiny. She described the immense pressure of being married to a global superstar, the expectations that came with public attention, and the emotional toll of constantly balancing personal needs with the demand of her husband's career. Annie revealed moments of loneliness, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion that were invisible to the world. She spoke candidly about feeling like a supporting character in a life that was perpetually performed on a stage she had not chosen. Despite these struggles, she maintained compassion and understanding for John, recognizing that fame and personal struggles affected them both. Annie also addressed the persistent rumors and misconceptions that had surrounded her life. From media speculation about her motivations to exaggerated stories of marital discord, she carefully clarified what was true, what was misinterpreted, and what had been entirely fictionalized. Her approach was measured yet piercing. She did not seek to assign blame, but rather to correct the narrative and provide a nuanced understanding of her experiences. She highlighted how private struggles, personal boundaries, and family responsibilities were often distorted into headlines that misrepresented reality. In addition to clarifying the past, Annie spoke about the lessons she had learned through her journey. She reflected on the importance of resilience, self-awareness, and emotional boundaries. The years of separation and introspection allowed her to develop a keen sense of who she was, independent of fame or external validation. Annie's life after John Denver became a testament to growth, autonomy, and the power of self-possession. She emphasized that moving forward required embracing both the pain and the beauty of her experiences, understanding them fully, and using them as a foundation for a richer, more balanced life. Annie's revelations also touched on broader themes of celebrity culture and media intrusion. She spoke about the human cost of being married to someone constantly in the public eye, the ways in which personal relationships are affected, privacy is eroded, and emotional authenticity is challenged. By sharing her perspective, she invited audiences to reconsider assumptions about public figures, encouraging empathy and a deeper awareness of the complexities behind fame. Her openness illuminated the personal consequences of public life and underscored the resilience required to navigate it with dignity. Today, Annie Denver is a woman who has fully embraced her autonomy and reclaimed her voice. She has cultivated a life focused on personal fulfillment, family, and meaningful relationships, free from the constant pressures of public attention. Friends describe her as grounded, composed, and quietly radiant, a person who has navigated immense challenges with grace and emotional intelligence. Her life is a blend of reflection, self-expression, and ongoing growth, showing that authenticity and self-possession are attainable even after years of external expectation and personal hardship. Beyond personal healing, Annie has become an advocate, subtly but powerfully, for the recognition of the human experience behind public personas. She encourages audiences to understand that behind every headline, there are real lives, complex emotions, and personal struggles that are often invisible. Her story serves as both a personal closure and a guide for others who may have lived in the shadows of demanding relationships or overwhelming circumstances. Ultimately, the final chapter of Annie Denver's life is defined not by fame, scandal, or heartbreak, but by clarity, empowerment, and self-realization. She has transformed silence into voice, vulnerability into strength, and private pain into lessons of resilience. Her journey is an example of how life, even after profound challenges, can be rebuilt with intention, self-respect, and emotional honesty. Annie's courage to share her story provides inspiration, showing that it is never too late to reclaim your narrative, speak your truth, and live authentically. Her story reminds us that true strength often lies in quiet perseverance, thoughtful reflection, and the ability to emerge from hardship with dignity. Annie Denver's life today is a testament to the enduring power of resilience, the importance of self-awareness, and the value of embracing one's own story fully. By speaking openly, she has given herself and the world a final gift, the opportunity to understand her truth, honor her journey, and see the person beyond the headlines. And that brings us to the end of this incredible journey into the life of Annie Denver, the woman who lived in the shadow of fame, yet found the courage to speak her truth. Her story is not just about love, loss, or celebrity. It's about resilience, self-discovery, and the power of reclaiming your narrative. If this video gave you a new perspective on Annie's life, her struggles, and her triumphs, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and allows us to keep bringing you in-depth stories that uncover the truth behind the headlines. Also, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Subscribing is crucial because it tells YouTube that you want more content like this, helping us reach more viewers and continue producing high-quality, captivating stories. Your support goes beyond numbers. It ensures that these hidden stories, often overlooked by mainstream media, get the attention they deserve. If you'd like to support the channel even further, consider leaving a super thanks. Every contribution helps us create better research, visuals, and scripts for our videos. But don't worry if that's not possible. Just leave a comment below telling us what part of Annie Denver's story surprised you the most. We love reading your thoughts and interacting with viewers who are as passionate about uncovering the real stories as we are. And finally, don't go anywhere yet. On the screen right now, you'll see a video we recommend that is even more captivating than this one. It dives into another incredible untold story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Click on it and continue the journey, because the best stories are always just a click away. Thank you for watching, for listening, and for being part of this community that values truth, depth, and emotion in storytelling.